This conference will now be recorded.
Great. Well, welcome everybody to the February 25th, 2021 meeting of the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors. Of course, we are recording this through GoToMeeting this evening. This evening we have with us Supervisors David Ayal, Betsy Strada, Doug Rushton. I don't see Helen here yet. So she'll be joining us. We also have Council Ben Cushman. We have our Executive Director, Sarah Moorhead, staff member Leah Kellogg, Gene Fike from the State Conservation Commission, and Chris Stearns, Associate Supervisor. Hopefully I got everybody there. And I apologize, my camera doesn't seem to be working this evening, so we're going to do the voice from the ether and not a picture tonight. And I think Helen will be joining us shortly. I just spoke with her. So we'll go ahead and get started here. The first item up is an agenda review. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda from either board or staff?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Betsy.
I wanted to add an item about our meeting this morning, just to give you a quick update. Sarah has a good little bit of info to report regarding the Conservation and Education Center.
Okay, let's put that as item C under 7C. We'll make that item 7C, and we'll move the existing 7C to 7D. Okay, any other changes to our agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion to adopt our agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Moved by Betsy, seconded by Doug. We'll do a roll call vote. Betsy?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
David? David, are you there? Okay, I see a thumbs up. I don't hear anything. I'll take the thumb up as an aye. Helen? Are you there, Helen? Okay. Not hearing Helen at this point.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to join a Zoom meeting. Silly me.
So there's a motion on the floor to approve our agenda as amended, the amendment being a report of the Education Conservation Center group that met this morning. That'll be our new item 7C, and we'll move existing 7C to 7D. How do you vote on that motion, Helen?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. We have an approved agenda. Thank you all. Next up is our consent agenda. We have 3 items on consent tonight. The January 2021 board meeting minutes, the January 2021 financial report, and the agreement with the Department of Veterans Affairs Veterans Conservation Corps number 305V-21-012. So that's what is on consent. Is there a motion on our consent agenda?
I move to approve.
Betsy has moved. Is there a second?
Doug will second.
Doug has seconded. Okay. Roll call vote. Betsy?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
David? Another thumbs up. All right. That works. And Helen?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So we've approved our consent agenda. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda.
Pardon me, TJ.
Yes.
I just wanted to double check that that's Betsy moved and Doug seconded.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 4 takes us to public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to make public comment to the board this evening? Any public comment? Going once? Going twice? Okay. There is no public comment this evening. So we will then move on to item 5A. Item 5, partner reports. The first item here, 5A, is the Washington State Conservation Commission. Hello, Jean.
Hello. Not very much to report this time. As you know, legislative session is still underway. Thank you already for having responded to questions and on a quick turnaround when we get inquiries about legislation. And thank you in advance. That'll probably happen again. Of course, we don't really know what will happen in the budget process. The policy cutoff has passed, but of course, lots of things can happen that are deemed necessary to implement the budget. So really, we're just tracking things closely and hoping it all turns out well. And thanks for your help and support around that. One thing I do want to mention, so it doesn't come as a surprise, this is the time of year when the regional managers review preliminarily all of the districts we work with regard to the CAP program. I'm thinking Helen may not have run across this yet. So it's essentially a checklist. The standard one is a checklist of things that districts are legally required to do or are required by the master contract with the commission to do. And it's on a calendar basis. Things are due at certain times. So this is a preliminary check to see if anything is amiss with time to correct it. And at this time, I don't see anything amiss. There are a number of deadlines that haven't happened yet, things like having the election certified, the annual report, those kinds of things. But I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be attaching that to the email and to let you know that it doesn't mean anything untoward is happening. It's just a normal thing that I do this time of year. And as far as I can see right now, everything's looking just fine. I'm happy to take any questions.
Tina, if you're at liberty to tell us, I'm just sort of curious in terms of the bigger perspective, how are other districts doing? Are there any districts of concern under CAP at this point?
Yeah, so right now, I haven't finished reviewing all of my districts. I work with 11 districts. I don't think anything's going to rise, that I can see right now to the level where it would need to be reported to the commission at the upcoming meeting. I believe there is one or two around the state that may be in that boat that I know of right now. I think people are in process, still going through, checking all the boxes. So I'm not sure we fully know yet, but right now indications are maybe in the one or two, and there may be more as the regional managers continue their analysis. If that helps give a little framing, a little context. And then as we get closer to, seeing how the elections went and all of, we may be looking at talking to the commission about others. We'll see how that goes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Jean?
This is Doug. Just to comment, the commission, because I'm doing forestry related stuff, the commission does plan on having a workshop with an announcement probably next week. It'll be an outreach workshop on wildfire, 2 half-day sessions, probably on the 8th and 9th of April. And maybe another one in the fall. Sorry, Jean.
Thanks, Doug. I hadn't heard the dates yet. That's great. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jean and Doug. That takes us to item 5B, and we'll throw 5C in there too. The WACD, NACD updates. We did get written updates. Is there anything that you want to add to your written updates, Doug?
Yeah, just to concur with what Jean said, there are, I think, 9 managers around the state who either there are vacancies, I should say 9 management positions where there's a vacancy or the manager has only been there for less than a year. So we're in kind of a transition period now. A strategic plan was adopted by WACD, and the information going out has been rearranged. I complained about getting 42 emails a day from WACD, and I guess some other folks did too. So the WACD hub, that's going to be inward focused to CD folks, and the WACD website will be outward focused, more public face. So I think that's a good way to break it up. And then the WACD Legislative Week will be March 10th through the 17th. As you may recall, we were one of the only districts that went during the original one and responded to the Commission's request or WACD's request. So that's WACD. Questions?
Anything from NACD, Doug?
Okay. We're gearing up for what they call the fly-in. Normally, several of us go to DC to lobby for, well, excuse me, educate people on our issues and what we'd like to see in legislation. And that'll be on March 22nd. It'll be a virtual thing. And we're having meetings now on kind of what the emphasis should be and who will say what, when, and who we should meet with and that sort of thing. NACD does have 4 issue papers out, which are all on the NACD website under the fly-in portion. When you go to event, you go to NACD website, go to events, and then fly in, and that'll take you to the issue papers. Nothing really earth-shaking. More money for NRCS. We're going to try to pressure funding level to increase for the Forest Services branch of state and private forestry, which gives money to DNR and also to us. And the current proposal, and I'm not sure if it's the current administration or the previous administration, but the proposal that was on the paper that they had was like 220 million was how much they're talking about, but it was like 800 was the need. So big disparity there. And that's it.
Okay, any questions for Doug on NACD?
Oh, I have a comment.
Yes.
I actually dropped into the national convention or whatever you call it, and looked at a few sessions. And I was, on the one hand, I attended the urban group. I don't remember exactly what the title of the urban group was, but I had the sense that they were kind of not fully ready to launch aggressively yet, but they were pulling themselves together. And I attended some of the breakout sessions on urban conservation and agriculture and found them very inspiring, actually, some of the things that are being done around the country. And I also was very pleased by the amount of emphasis that was placed on equity, diversity, and inclusion at the meeting. And it wasn't just lip service, it was serious. And I really appreciated that and found that inspiring as well. So that's all.
I will pass that on, Helen.
Okay. Next up under reports, we have Washington State Department of Ecology, but I don't believe we have any representative, Elena, or anyone else here with us tonight. If there is someone and I'm missing it, please speak up at this point. I don't see anybody online.
They were unable to attend this evening and just referred to the ecology newsletter that they share with the district.
Great, thank you. And then our last report, NRCS, we did get a written report from Robin Buckingham, so I'm assuming he's not here this evening, but if you all haven't had a chance to look at that, he gave us an update on what is happening with NRCS. I think the most notable thing that I noted there was that they've altered their timeline a little bit for the EQIP grant cycle and not moving forward quite as quickly as the original schedule called for, but it's all in his report. Okay, so with that, that concludes our reports, and we move to item 6, standing agenda item on COVID-19 update. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, CJ. So again, continuing status quo with our protocols. that we're currently following, and our remote work and teleworking, our office scheduling pieces. No new reports to update as far as that goes. That seems to be working well. Again, folks have been doing this for almost a year now, and so we've realized all of the tools and pieces that we need to be really successful and efficient, and continue to do so. We're also, along with folks at the Commission and WACD, monitoring for legislation that passes that would affect OPMA for public meetings. But at this point, just continue to monitor that and any future development to our Safe Start plan. So business as usual at this point, and things are also going well. Any questions?
Cool. Questions for Sarah? All right, not hearing any. Thank you, Sarah. That moves us to item 7A, 2021 election update.
Yeah, thank you. So we are in full swing of ballot requests. All of that information is available on our website in how members of the public can request ballots. We have our 2 seasonal election staff that are just wonderful. They have been great to work with at the district. They are very competent, diligent individuals, and they continue to process those ballot requests weekly, daily, and we meet with the auditor's office to verify signatures on a weekly basis. None of the ballots will be counted until the very end on election day, when we do that in tandem with folks at the auditor's office when we're doing that ballot count. So all of those are being stored in a secure way until then. Folks can continue, and all of this information is on our website, to request ballots through March 11th via mail. So that's about 2 weeks from now, and then can request ballots after that in person if they so choose. There's a specific email address for TCD election staff, as well as a specific extension line that folks can call if they want to use either of those mechanisms to request a ballot outside of in person. We continue to have our ballot box outside of our front office that's under lock and key for folks to drop ballots off if they choose, rather than postmarking them. And again, just a reminder for any members of the public that might be on the call, none of the ballot boxes within the county are being used for TCD elections. So it's the ballot box outside of our front door, or you can mail the ballot to our office. So again, things are going really well here. We have one candidate on the ballot, and that's Helen Wheatley, and new WAC changes this year. Write-in candidates are eligible to become supervisors as well. So just a reminder there. That's all for the 2021 election. Is there any questions there? Otherwise, I have a sort of related reminder about our appointed position opening.
Yes, could you please clarify that? Because I feel like I may have created some confusion around that issue with some conversations the other day. So if you would not, oh, I'm sorry, Betsy, do you have a question about the election?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
that's okay. I just wanted to get a sense of how many requests we're getting. Are we getting good ballot response?
So I think that question is probably relative. We have not done any counts yet, though, of the ballot. So that will all come at the end. I haven't heard from Nora whether, things seem to be higher or lower than previous years. but I know that we are continuing to receive ballots and process them daily. So at this point, we don't have any numbers that we can stick to that. I'm so sorry.
Okay, but they're getting requested. We're getting lots of requests for ballots.
Yes, and I can follow up after this meeting and let you know how many requests we've received so far.
Okay, that'd be good information, just to make sure the public is hearing about it enough. It's nice
Yes,
to have lots of people voting rather than just a few.
Agreed. We definitely want robust public participation. Other questions on the election?
Sir, could you address the appointed position now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we also, at the same time, and this happens regularly, have an appointed position at our district that is open for application as well. And so this is an application process that interested candidates would file an application with the Washington State Conservation Commission to apply to be a supervisor. And I'll find that outreach material real quick and pop that up on the screen so that folks can see it. Because we have a call for candidates here. There we go. You should be able to see that in just a moment. Here we are. So our appointed positions, again, we have 2 of those on our board. We have 3 elected seats. All of our board members serve a 3-year term. And currently the seat that Doug Rushton is filling is up for reappointment. So this is our call for candidates. Here, staff are beginning outreach for this position. You can see on this a link to our website again for more information about the opportunity and a link to the Commission's website. Both of those connect you to all of the necessary application and supporting materials. The deadline that the application must be received, as it says on the screen there, is by March 31st. Nora in our office, who's our election supervisor, also naturally covers information and outreach about our appointment process, and is well versed in the WAC and the RCW, and is happy to answer any questions that folks might have as well. But I'm also happy to take them tonight if you have any.
Well, I have 1 or 2.
Okay, I saw Helen's hand first and then Betsy. Go ahead, Helen.
I wanted to ask if are current members required to reapply then, as if they were new applicants? Is it just kind of standard procedure to require reapplication at the end of the term?
Yes, every time. Yep. So if a supervisor has intent to continue to serve, we'll have to reapply for that same position just as a new applicant would. And the process is identical.
This is Doug. There's a bit of a quirk on this particular one. Betsy, you were around when I was reappointed about 18 months ago. That was because there was the investigation that was promulgated by 2 former supervisors against Paul Pickett and myself. So the Conservation Commission wanted to complete that investigation before deciding on whether to reappoint or not. So that's why it's only been like 18 months.
Yeah, that was confusing.
Yes, and I probably furthered that confusion in some conversations earlier this week, for which I apologize.
Well, hopefully it'll never happen again.
So Doug, you're applying again?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So I do still have 1 question.
Go ahead.
I'm troubled by the wording. Does it have to say who can apply? An applicant must be registered voter and may be required to own land or operate a farm. Is there the may? I don't know. If it was me and I didn't know anything about it, that would be like, what does that mean?
That's
Should
to
I read?
cover a
Yeah.
legal requirement in the statute that says a certain percentage or a certain board member has to be a landowner or an operator. So
Well, do we
because you
know
don't know what the, well, let me finish. Because
Okay.
we don't know who's going to apply and who's going to be reappointed, they have to put that in there to make it broader. And
But
Sarah
what
may have
about
more.
right now? Like right now, we know what we have. So does this position have to be filled by a landowner?
So I can jump in right here. So no, not necessarily. With the current makeup of our board, would this position have to be a landowner or a farm operator? If for some reason during this recruitment process we lost all of you and had to restart, or we lost all of our landowners, that's where the may language would come into place. Is if for some reason all of our landowners on the board step down tomorrow, this is just, again, it's a legal caveat that references that statute that says 2/3 of your board has to be a landowner or a farm operator. And I do see what you're saying, Betsy, that could potentially be, could exclude interested candidates. And it is just that legal line item in the statute that says districts are required to have that. And part of the verification process that the commission does with the applicants is review and the certifications of elections is they review the constitution of the board, and they say they look at how many landowners and operators are on there and if that threshold is met. So because it's still a criteria in the process, we've included it here just for transparency of that process. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I wonder, could we add wording that was something like may be required to blah, 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 depending on the composition of the current board or something like that? So they know why?
I don't think
Perhaps.
so, because this is statutorily required language. I think it's covered by a request for questions. I think that the
Okay.
plan is that it's to invite a question if somebody wants to know the answer to that. But I don't think we should muck around with the language that has been vetted by the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
So I guess this is another one of those, we'll put these in the category of antiquated statutory language governing the operations and elections of conservation districts.
We have that category?
We do now. Okay. So thanks everybody for that discussion. If we can, I think we're ready to move on.
I think Helen had a question and I did too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On this.
Go ahead,
I
Doug.
don't know if Helen still does. I'll go first.
No.
I
No,
think we
I don't.
need to. I think we need to modify the delegation to Nora to include appointments. If we're going to have her do appointments, that's different than elections. So the next time we redo that delegation of authority, we ought to change it to include that.
So that is certainly, a conversation that we could have. The election supervisor is a specific requirement of the elections process. Providing outreach and answering information about the appointed process that the commission facilitates is not a requirement. There's not a specific position assigned to that where you have to assign responsibility.
No, I understand that, but I think from a public input standpoint, we ought to tell people what the hell's going on.
Sure.
Though, I guess the flip side of that, Doug, is if we had, let's say that we had a vacancy in our elections supervisor position while an appointment process was going on, and we had already delegated it to that person, we wouldn't actually have anybody to do the outreach on behalf of the commission.
Well, I think to me, the bottom line is the public needs to know that there's a difference and what those differences are and how we're handling it.
So is the board,
I
is
don't
it the
think,
board, is it the board's desire that we revise our existing authority and delegate appointment publicity to our elections officer? Any?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, we're
Curious what
just assuming that no one's doing it.
the
I
other.
don't see any harm.
To address your concern, you could say the election supervisor or other designate of the board, or something like that.
Okay.
Well, I'll register I'm happy to vote for a resolution like that, but I'm not fully convinced of the necessity of it. I don't feel that it's necessary, but I don't have a strong feeling about it one way or the other.
David, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree with Helen. You know, it's I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. It's I think it's fine the way it is.
Can I suggest that we ask staff to revise that delegation of authority and bring it back to us at our March meeting, and we can make a decision one way or the other on that with wording in front of us? Because I'm hearing a bit of a split in the board, and to resolve that, I think we'll actually need to look at language and decide yes or no, which clearly we can't do this evening.
I guess my
Yeah,
one concern and question about that for both Ben and Jean would be if we want to open up our elections resolution again mid-election, where that authority is delegated. There's not any specific policy authority similar to like the delegation of authority to the executive director or the treasurer, / accountant at the district. It's a resolution that the board is required to pass at a certain time with certain information pertaining specifically to the election. That's the only delegated authority where the election supervisor is named. And so I am a little bit concerned about maybe inviting that back into a board meeting where variables are changing while we have a current election happening. Perhaps maybe a separate resolution.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do it through that resolution. I think we can do it through a policy resolution that is intended to overlay the current election resolution and all future election resolutions. I'll talk to you about this, Sarah, between now and the next meeting, and we can come up with a recommendation to the board.
That sounds great. I think a separate resolution sounds wonderful, and I'd be happy to get a draft to you.
What my thought was is we could delegate it, put it in Sarah's job description. It's delegated to her, and she can deal with it as she sees fit. I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. We just aren't covered there anyway.
Well, if the issue is transparency to the public, delegating it to Sarah when she isn't actually going to do it may not solve that problem. So I'm comfortable.
Or her designee, I think I said.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with Ben and Sarah thinking about this from a programmatic and a legal perspective and bringing us back something in the future to look at. Is that okay with the board?
Sounds good.
Can I ask, TJ, can I ask you to clarify that point?
Ben and Sarah,
staff?
yes, Ben and Sarah are going to figure out the best mechanism for clarifying that we would like our election officer to also handle outreach for commission appointments.
Thank you for clarifying that point.
Okay, we ready to move on? Yes. Okay. So that takes us to 7B, Citizens Advisory Committee and Associate Supervisors. This is essentially a continuation of the discussion we had at our work session. As a reminder of the context here, we have one existing Associate Supervisor, Chris Stearns. We have an applicant for Associate Supervisor, Jay Kreinitz, who's also here with us this evening. Last year, I believe it was last year, we adopted, might have been 2 years ago now, we adopted a policy to create a Citizens Advisory Committee. Originally, that was driven by a desire from the county commissioners that was translated through their contracts with the Conservation District, that we form such an organization. And so we have on paper 2 different systems. We have one system that has one person on it right now, Chris. We have a second system that has nobody appointed to it at this point. And the question is, do we want both of these? Do we need both of these? How should we handle this in the ways that are going to provide the most value to the district with the least impact on staff and other resources? So we all had a chance at the executive session last month to talk a little bit about this and at the work session. So we've come to the point now where we need to kind of make a decision about how to proceed here. Hopefully make a decision about how to proceed here. So with that, I'll kind of open up the floor here to either comments, questions, motions to move this conversation forward. Is there anyone? Yes, Helen, I see your hand first.
Yeah. So, well, apologies to everyone for not being fully up to speed on the history of this, because I was under the impression that there was a bit of a difference between the policy and the fact of the existence of the CAC. So I'm not going to put forward that resolution. I will speak to my opinion is that I support going with just the CAC. And so I would support change. There are a couple of reasons for that. I mean, in the first place, I think setting up a CAC, I think it's an excellent idea to do that. I can make a lot of arguments for why the Conservation District would benefit from that. I also realize that it's a lot of effort and energy to create a CAC. And so I wouldn't want the staff to have to be handling two of these at the same time. And for me personally, and maybe others can speak up and be persuasive about this, but I do not feel that I can see a lot of benefit to what is it, the other one, the advisory, help me out with the name of it.
Associate Supervisor.
Yeah, the associate position. I'm not sure that that fits in with how this particular conservation district operates so much. I think a CAC would be more reflective of how this particular district works with its residents. So that's my 2 cents. And then I wanted to say that when we get to it, I do have some proposed changes to the language of the policy itself.
Okay, let's talk more generally about the concept before we start looking at specifics of policy changes. So are there other comments generally about the relative pros, cons, merits, or demerits of these 2 different systems? Yeah, David.
Just kind of a question first, I guess. I believe the CAC was requested of us that we set up the CAC as far as getting our rates and charges. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it was originally put in the contract that the county gave to us, but it's no longer a contractual requirement between us and the county. We took that out in the last go-round. I will say that in the recent meeting we had with 1/3 of the county commission, that would be Commissioner Mejia, she really liked the idea of the Citizens Advisory Committee, even though we were very clear it's not a requirement. She thought that it would be good for the district to do that. So that's kind of the context on that, David.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. I
Betsy
definitely
and then
all in favor of.
Betsy and then Doug.
I don't think David was done.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I'm
I was
sorry.
just going to say I'm definitely in favor of the Citizens Advisory Committee over the Associate Supervisors.
Thank you. Your picture had frozen, so I thought you were done, David.
Sorry.
Thank you. So CAC, thank you. Betsy and then Doug.
So did Commissioner Mejia understand that we were looking at both options? Was she presented with the idea of the associate supervisor?
We told her that we had both, and we gave her more of a context on the CAC because that had been something that the county had originally raised. But in explaining the district and the governance of the district, we talked about the fact that we had 5 supervisors, 3 elected, 2 appointed. We had associate supervisors, and then we had this other request to do a CAC.
Okay.
Anything else on that, Betsy?
No.
Okay, Doug?
On the advisory committee, I actually brought that up as a negotiating tactic with the commissioners, so it would sell better with the rates and charges. And it seemed like we'd get broader representation because people tend to think of us as strictly agriculture, and there's a whole lot of other natural resource issues going on. So that was one of the reasons behind that. I like the idea. On the other hand, the associate supervisor thing is in the statute 8908, and when we go to national meetings, state meetings, or area meetings, we can delegate voting authority to that person. So if each district can have a maximum of 5 votes, and so say if I wasn't going to one and everybody else was, we could delegate my vote to Chris Stearns as our designated associate. And with an advisory group, that couldn't happen. That's maybe a minor point, but it could be important at some point.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Couple of thoughts I had, and maybe Gene, you can check me on this. My understanding is that across the state it varies widely. Some districts have 0 associate supervisors, and some have a pretty robust associate supervisor system. Is that accurate, or what's the lay of the land at sort of the state perspective?
Yeah, that's right on target. And I am going to, with great trepidation, perhaps correct Doug. I don't believe associates are in 8908. Many states have associates in their enabling statute, but unless my memory is failing me, the statute in Washington on the matter. Many districts use associates to great effect, but certainly not.
Associates are mentioned in the statute as an option that districts have. So they're not mentioned as a requirement. They're mentioned as an option, but also so are creating outreach committees. Although there's not a specific language talking about a citizens advisory committee, I believe the authority is in the statute to do that as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I brought it up. I like the idea of the advisory committee because we can have them focused on a specific issue that we're dealing with, for example. One of the problems with the associates was, in a lot of cases, we never gave them anything to do, so they'd drift away.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I'm not really inclined to continue to appoint associate supervisors. And I mentioned this at our last meeting. I just don't think that the board lacks capacity to do what we need to do as board members at this point. Whereas I think there's a lot of value in having a group of people who can, over time, become educated about what the district does and provide us good advice. And meanwhile, as they learn about what the district does, they have a broader outreach into the community as sort of not representatives of the board, but ambassadors of the organization to share who we are and what we do. And I think a lot of my thinking on this has to go with when we went through our strategic planning process last year. I was pretty disappointed with the number of people who engaged in that process and also their level of knowledge of the district. I didn't feel like we got a whole lot of great advice from people in putting the strategic plan together. Whereas if we had had a group like the Citizen Advisory Committee that knew more about the district, we might have had deeper and more meaningful input into our strategic plan in a way that I don't think we really got last time. So my view on this is I think we should hold off on any further appointments to the associate supervisor system, and we should look at our policy on CAC. And when we adopted this, I think we made the policy overly complicated. And in conversations with staff, I think that's the sense I got from Sarah, is that this is maybe more complicated than it needed to be. And that we might look for some opportunities to simplify the policy and then really go forward to implement and recruit for a Citizens Advisory Committee that we can start to work with. And I would also, I guess, go a step further to say that both our existing associate supervisor and our applicant to be an associate supervisor would both be probably great additions and starting points to help us with staffing the Citizens Advisory Committee. So that's my thinking on it. Now, Helen, you said you had some ideas about changes to the policy or next steps or something?
I do have a number of suggestions that I think we would want to discuss, and then I do have maybe some suggested language too. I totally agree that I think it's overly complicated and overly long and overly specific as it's currently written, and a little bit confusing in places too. There's some language that I just frankly didn't even understand. So my first suggestion, the first thing that I would like to ask is about the size of the board. I am a bit concerned, especially as it begins to constitute itself, by the ambitious size. I think 12 is a lot of people to be on a, and it sort of depends on what we want the board to do or how often it's going to meet or what the scale of its work is going to be. But it just strikes me that 12 is pretty ambitious. And so I was wondering if we might want to set a minimum as well, you know, maybe call 12 the maximum, but set a minimum number as well for the board to be considered functional. And I was going to suggest maybe 7. Maybe that's not ambitious enough, but that was one suggestion I wanted to make.
Sounds way better than 12.
I agree.
I think the person who felt most strongly about a larger committee is no longer a member of our board. And I think a number of us argued back when we first looked at this that 12 might be unwieldy, and it seems like in the rearview mirror we're finding out perhaps it is.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Helen.
Well, no, Doug, go ahead, because I was going to propose that we make a motion to change the language if we're at that point. Oh, well, or I guess that's not necessary. We can just do that. Okay. We can just pencil it in like that, and we don't. need to make a motion?
Yeah, I would suggest that we go through and make any changes here that we want to make, and then either
Okay.
have a motion to adopt a revised policy tonight, or to come back and adopt that revised policy at our next meeting with a little bit more time to reflect on it. We could go either way, but let's kind of work through all the potential changes before putting a motion on the table one way or the other.
Yep. I like your
Okay, well, I
second
do have
option
another
better.
one. I do have more suggestions, but I certainly don't want to hog the show here.
Well, you've got the floor now, so why don't you go first, Helen, and then we'll give everybody a chance to weigh in
Okay.
here.
Okay, so then I would suggest that we just, if we go to the next page, that we simply delete the whole list of positions and qualifications of positions. That whole chart, I would propose that we delete it and we substitute language for that, which I could copy and paste and put in the chat, or I'm not quite sure. That might be the easiest thing to do, and then you could just pop it in there.
If we do that, we'll have to change the language regarding the numbers and that weird thing about which numbers start when.
Yes, well, that was my next, I would
Yeah.
propose that we also delete the notes of qualifications. So anyway, that's what I'm suggesting as a substitute. I have in the chat my suggested substitute for that chart of positions and qualifications. And then since we're deleting that, we can also delete the notes on qualifications.
What I meant was the other thing on the page before about the term number 1, 3, 5, and 7 start in 1 year, and the odd number and even number thing in the paragraph a couple ones back, which is very cumbersome language.
You know, other citizen advisory committees that I've been familiar with, you just have a standing term. Let's say it's 2 or 3 years, and you can appoint people at various times. And so you have people whose terms are expiring at various points throughout any given year based on when they were appointed.
Right.
Versus kind of dividing the committee in half like we did with the existing policy.
And people are going to come and go willy-nilly anyway.
Yeah.
You know, due to life.
Yeah.
I would like to see language something like the composition of this advisory committee, emphasis on advisory, would be appropriate for the particular subject and for the particular time as designated by the board.
Doug, your audio
Make it
cut out
really,
just
really
a little.
broad.
We lost part of your Doug, can you restate that? We lost your audio there.
I'd like to see us make a statement that the composition of the board would be appropriate to whatever subject it was they were dealing with.
Oh, I disagree with that, actually, I think, because we wouldn't necessarily know, you know, there'd probably if we want to use it as a sort of a sounding board or to develop ideas, and I certainly have a couple of ideas I would love to work on developing, then it seems to me we would have to develop some kind of a process among members of the board for how we agree on what the CAC would be working on. But I think that I do agree with the general concept of what Paul was trying to do in creating a breadth of representation on the board rather than trying to focus it on a particular goal. And I also think that you can't really know what the board's going to agree the CAC should be working on or over what kind of a time frame.
Well, I'll just back off on the specifics and make it broader so we can appoint whomever.
Yeah. Well,
including breadth of experience and all that.
should I, Doug, can you see the language that I proposed in the chat, and can you tell me if that sort of
No,
fits?
I'm sorry, I actually can't. I had eye surgery today and my vision is really, really poor right now. In fact, I've got one eye that's all screwy and I can't
Oh,
see it very
no.
well.
It's not too long. We could read
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. I'd be
Well,
happy to.
what I would like to do is maybe submit comments on this
Yeah,
and bring
that's
it back.
where I'm beginning to think that might be the best suggestion here is to take these comments and comments that come after this meeting and then come back and spend some time at our work session and iron all of this stuff out when we can see different options in writing in front of us and different sort of proposed amendments to this thing. Like I can see this is getting complicated when we're not all on the same platform to see changes.
Yeah, well, I apologize, but had to go through this. And I'm sorry, Helen, that I can't read what you said. I'm pretty sure it's really great.
No worries. No worries,
When will
Doug.
you have your vision back, Doug?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
When will you be able to use your eyes again?
Probably about 3 days. I get to take the patch off later tonight.
Okay.
Well, it sounds to me, I'm going to just check here. I think we have some agreement on some basic principles here as a starting point. Principle one being that the policy is too complicated. Principle two is that we don't like the idea of this prescribed membership, that we want more flexibility to create a committee that reflects the community, as Helen's wording suggested here. Principle three would be that we want a smaller committee, potentially, but we've suggested a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 12. That could be different. And that these folks would be appointed in sort of an ongoing basis based on when they apply, serving a fixed term as opposed to half of them getting appointed in January of one year and half getting appointed in January of the next year. Those are the pieces I've got so far. Are there other broad principles of agreement as we think about this thing moving forward?
I'd suggest I don't know, a year out or after we see how this is working, that we do some sort of assessment, because we might go, oh golly, this isn't working like we thought it was and it really sucks. And what adjustments we might want to make.
Okay.
I mean, if we want to go all the way through, if you want to devote any more time to it, I did have another area where I kind of had a massive suggested deletion.
Yeah, let's talk about it. That's kind of big picture stuff here. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so if we go to the next page under powers and duties of the CAC, I haven't given a really close scrutiny to the wording in the first 3 paragraphs. I may have something to say about that, but I find the bulleted list to be a bit oppressive and scary. If I were asked to join the CAC and I were given this list of powers and duties, I might back off if I saw this list. And I don't know that it's necessary. Maybe others feel that it is, but I don't. And I suggest deleting it. So that's where I am.
Well, I don't think it's, I think if anything, maybe we could change the intro sentence.
Yeah, such as.
To make it less like you're going to do all these things. I can't think that quickly to say what that wording might be, but these are just examples of things we might ask you to oversee or look into rather than common duties.
Well, do we really
Yeah.
think we're going to be asking the CAC to, for example, review rates and charges reporting to the county? Or review annual elections and district appointments?
That one, yeah, definitely that one. I guess I see that as maybe if someone's questioning our the way we're doing things, if things get weird again, this is a group that could give some oversight. Maybe that was the intention there.
I believe it was.
Again, it's not
But
a common thing that they would do. Maybe we could leave those off as less common.
Yeah, I'd be in
in
favor of
retrospect,
deleting. I'd be in favor of deleting bullets 3 and 4. Those seem very different than the other things that are on this list. And I like your suggestion, Betsy, of some of the issues that the committee might address are.
Yeah, this is a possible list.
Yeah.
Well, I also wonder
yeah, it looks
about,
really onerous.
it looks onerous, did you say?
Yeah, onerous, really.
And I also wonder how much of it overlaps with what we're supposed to be doing as a board. I mean, reviewing the budget and annual plan and prioritizing actions. I mean,
Yeah, I quit. No.
Well, that's where I think there's actually a lot of value in a CAC.
Okay.
And I'll use the example of when I was the chair of the Intercity Transit Authority. The Intercity Transit Authority had a citizens advisory committee, and they would essentially meet the week, I think it was the week before the board met, and they would go through the board's agenda, and I'm not saying we do this, but they would go through the board's agenda and talk about each issue. And so when the board met the next week to make decisions, we had the benefit of having had community members think about these things and raise issues, and they weren't ever making decisions. It was just like, think about this, think about that. I found that really valuable. And clearly this group would not be meeting every month in the same way, but looking at these things that we have to adopt, budgets and annual plans and priorities and stuff like that, and having some community input on the front end of that would make me more confident when I had to make a decision.
I think that's a good point. A corollary point to that is this can be used as a recruiting tool. We're not all going to be here forever, and we can see who might make a good supervisor.
Okay, so another big point I'm hearing here of consensus is that we don't want a prescriptive list. We want a list of things that people might talk about if they're on this committee. And it looks like, at least in terms of these bullets, items 3 and 4 are a little too specific, and we probably want to take those out. Are there other?
Can I offer a comment?
Yes, please.
I would also maybe consider taking out the 5th bullet point here about reviewing policies and procedures internally in the district. I'm not sure that citizens typically are really involved in internal policy and knowledgeable about internal policy versus external programming and outreach and awareness and communication, which I think is a great piece. Further on that is, we also have our relationship with our collective bargaining unit there, and there's particular avenues for conversation and communication that we have to adhere to in relation to that. So that just may be a really complex area for citizens who are volunteering their time to engage in. So just food for thought on that.
One of the things that strikes me about the whole process is our ability as a board to have capacity to manage this. And all of us are pretty busy, and if we can I don't know, I'm just kind of concerned about more work for staff and us.
That's kind of why I was wanting to get rid of the bullets and try to think about just you know, as with the other page with the qualifications of position. I think we could probably, it wouldn't be that hard to come up with some language that's broad enough
Yeah.
and flexible enough that we could use that instead of doing this bullet point thing that makes it seem like it's on the agenda, you know, when it's really not.
David?
And
I'm sorry,
I just
Helen, I
wanted
don't want to cut you off, but David is next when you're done.
I'm done.
Okay.
I was just going to say I agree with Sarah removing bullet 5. And then I feel that this is actually a pretty good list to keep on here. It took away quite a bit, I think, of the responsibilities and is more of feedback and, you know, community outreach, which is what we're looking for in this committee. So I think this list I'm good with.
Yeah,
Betsy?
that's a good way to put it.
Go ahead, Betsy.
What about adding the word possible issues in the intro sentence? Some of the possible issues.
Great. I would suggest on the 6th bullet, the second line says help direct district policies. I think it should say help inform district policies because they're not directing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are we? 6th bullet?
6th bullet, she just deleted the word
Oh.
direct, added inform.
You know, looking at this now after a year or so has gone by, it looks really not that good.
What were we thinking?
Yeah,
Right.
well, the conditions have changed. Some of the paranoia has gone away.
That's a good way to put it. David, I saw your hand.
Yeah, one more comment. I think on that first sentence there, the following list is some of the possible issues. I think I changed possible issues to some of the duties of the CAC.
Possible duties or duties?
Just duties. That's what we're going to bring them on for, is to provide feedback for budgets, programs, represent the community. So.
So we're getting a little
So
bit
how
into
do we want to do this?
wordsmithing here now, which is fine, but are there other big conceptual things that we want to address here that need some discussion tonight before we do some revisions and additional wording post-meeting? Not hearing any. So I think then our next step is to clean this up, send it, and directing this to Sarah, I guess, clean this up based on what we've talked about tonight, send it out to the board. We'll have another chance to read through it kind of in context, the whole thing, provide feedback, comments back to Sarah, and then we'll look at this at our March work session and hopefully be able to put it in a final form at that work session where it goes on the consent calendar for our March meeting. Does that seem like a good way to go, folks?
Yes.
Okay. I'm seeing lots of nods and one frozen screen, so I'm going to pretend that Helen's nodding. Okay. Sarah, is that clear to you what our next steps are?
Absolutely, sounds great to me.
Okay.
Do we need to take a step or make a motion or anything regarding that we're kind of moving away from the associate supervisor group?
So my take on that is that we don't need to do anything because it's a policy that we should leave in place in case this board or a future board wants to appoint associate supervisors. But we have Chris Stearns, who has asked to be reappointed. So his term is essentially up, and he's asking to be reappointed. And we have Jay Kreinitz, who is interested, was originally interested in the associate supervisor position, who might be interested in serving on this committee as well. So I don't know that we need any action to eliminate an existing policy that could tie the hands of a future board, but we do need to decide if we're not appointing or reappointing to the Citizen Advisory Committee, we need to let those people know that. And Chris, I see your hand here, so I'm going to ask what's on your mind now. I think you're on mute, Chris. I'm not hearing you. Anybody else hearing Chris?
No.
Hey, Chris, are you on mute? We don't hear you.
Chris, I think you'll have to call in. Your computer audio is not working.
Or you could put it in the chat box if you want to make a comment. Okay. I love technology. Great. Okay. So, yeah, we're not getting Chris on audio. So if you want to write something into the chat box, Chris, that you would have said, please do that because we're not hearing you. And unless there's anything further on this, we've got our next steps, and we'll come back to this on March 8th and hopefully get it in a final form for adoption at the end of March. Okay, then let's move on to the item that we added to our agenda now, item 7C, which is an update on education and conservation. Betsy, were you wanting to take the lead on that?
Well, I'll introduce Sarah. Sarah had a lot to tell us about, and it's pretty exciting.
Great. Yeah, so we met today as the ad hoc committee with David and Betsy and Susan Shelton in our office and myself to talk about the feasibility analysis and moving forward with that. In the meantime, this week I had a meeting with our partners over at the EDC to talk about other shared programming and work. And the conversation around the Tenino Agricultural Business and Innovation Park resurfaced. Some of you that have been on the board for a while might remember that conversations from Aslan Mead, a former supervisor and an employee at the EDC, have happened in the past about the district's interest in potentially locating its offices at this business park. The park itself has not been constructed yet, so it's City of Tenino owns property where they have their wastewater treatment facility. It's just outside of really the city proper, where they have been expanding into their UGA area. So it's still within the city. It's not within the 1947 district boundaries, which was a great question earlier. And so this property that's here, they're developing to serve agriculture and value-added processing and sort of a regional focus here in this, Thurston, Lewis, Grays Harbor kind of area, and probably beyond. It would have value. With that, there's been a lot of conversation about what that looks like. I served on a green ribbon panel of stakeholders in the community, along with a lot of producers and legislators and other partners to sort of vision what the future of this park looks like. And so there's been interest, I think, for the past couple of years since this idea sort of came to fruition about the district locating there. Recently, fast forward to this week in our conversations with the EDC, they're still looking for sort of an anchor tenant, sort of an agricultural service provider or liaison or some sort of institution that can really help continue the mission of that park and service. Is anyone else getting a lot of feedback? I apologize.
Yes.
Yes.
That was me. Sorry about that.
Let's see. I think maybe Chris, I'm just gonna mute you real quick, and I'll unmute you at the
Okay.
I think, yeah, there we go. I think he can't be on his phone and the website at the same time.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, Chris, I think it's still happening.
There we go. Just had to shut off the computer.
Okay, that's better. Continue, Sarah.
All right. So there's been interest again in exploring, as the district's looking at relocating offices, if this site meets the needs of the district. And so that's a conversation that I had with the committee. I'll delve a little bit more into the specifics of that idea and some of the things that are on the table and some of the timelines that are before the board, the committee, supervisors, Ayala and DeVreda, felt that this was an important opportunity to bring to the board tonight to have some conversation about, and there is a tight timeline associated. So currently the Economic Development Council has legislative funding from the current biennium that we're in to do some of the construction work at this site to break ground to begin building this agricultural business park, which again would focus on a variety of things, everything from potentially market and retail space to service provider space like office buildings for something like a district, to value-added processing like community kitchens, to more commercial industrial processing like packaging or slaughter facilities or bottling or distilling space. So sky's the limit sort of on that. And so they have about $1 million worth of funding that they need to spend on that site, or at least allocate in contract, is what I've been told from the EDC, which I also asked them to check on, by June 30th of this year. So what they're planning on doing is doing the site prep and power and water and sewer connection to the wastewater treatment plant on site, and building a shell, 10,000 square foot building shell that could be a variety of different types of uses, and future tenants of that building would move in and finish the build out according to whatever specification they're interested in. That's the current proposal that they have right now, unless there's interest from a particular tenant. So stepping into, if that is the ideal space for the conservation district building, they are interested in just investing that $1 million into a building that the district would be interested in. So they would be happy to use that as matching funds to be more flexible in that construction and building process. Their current estimates for full build out of that initial 10,000 square foot building are between $2.5 and $3 million, of which they would again invest. One, other entities that came to the table there, assuming it's one entity that wants full build out of all 10,000 square feet, would be responsible for the remaining $1.5 to $2 million of that build out. Again, that could be multiple tenants, could be one. There's a couple of questions still lingering out there, like ownership structure. Is this a building that will be built and owned by another entity? Is the complex itself going to be under a shared ownership structure? What's that sort of agreement between buildings going to look like? The city of Tenino, again, owns the land and the property, and what's that tenant relationship going to look like for the buildings? There's all sorts of again, management and ownership structure related questions still. But it is a potential where there is some investment, a current initiative to serve the community, and it's really highly visible and supported. So the outreach potential is certainly there. There's an on-site habitat easement as well that they're also interested in the district managing. Potentially that could be something that could be conducive to some types of restoration-oriented demonstrations, as well as other low-impact development infrastructure of the facility. There could be some potential for demonstration there. Tomorrow, and this is part of an email I sent out prior to this meeting, a very sudden opportunity arose to go and actually look at the site on the ground to see that. And so I'm planning on participating. I know I shared that with Betsy and David. Betsy is interested in participating in that. We are late in the hour now to put a notice of quorum out. So it would be great if we could keep other interests to 2 members of the board, and then future meetings or future site visits can occur if the board is interested in this opportunity at all, scheduled and noticed appropriately. So that's sort of that piece there. In addition to that, we've had a great conversation with Spokane Conservation District. They just purchased a 50-acre gravel mine site and asphalt recycling site. They're going through the process of renovating some on-site buildings as well as constructing a new building. It's a big multi-use project. And so they're an extremely knowledgeable resource in addition to others that we've identified for our district moving forward. It would be a great idea to have an additional presentation, I believe, by Vicki Carter, who's their executive director. She also shared some funding strategies and funding lines for the district to access, and we can get into that at a later date. But the big piece to carry forward to the board tonight is conversation around the ag business park itself, and does that check the right boxes for the board in terms of a future district site. The recommendation from the committee at this point is ask more questions, really delve into this opportunity to see what the details are, and hold off on putting out the RFP until all of the knowns about this opportunity are there and before the board, so the board can make an informed decision. Because of the tight timeline of this opportunity, they're looking for interest either way from our board by May of this year in this site because of the funding that they have to use. So that's the timeline associated. They're also welcome or have shown excitement to come in and present and do a presentation to the board, maybe at the March work session, and answer questions as well. So that is the update.
Is there comments for Sarah?
I certainly like the concept. I'm assuming the basic concept is the same as the previous iteration across from Fred Colvin's farm, the llama ranch. So I think that's a good thing. But I think a lot of questions to be answered. And one is that's going to be a really better commute for you, Sarah.
Yes, we noted that.
I'm jealous.
Other comments or questions? Helen?
Well, I'm the new board member in town, and I will register my feeling that Tenino is not a good place to put the conservation district center, because partly that long commute, if you turn it around, and if you consider where most of the population of Thurston County lives, it's not Tenino. And it also raises questions about the focus of the conservation district and to what degree the location, to my mind, it comes into my mind that it sort of places an agricultural focus on what the conservation district does, agriculture as agriculture, and potentially de-emphasizes other aspects of the conservation work that the district does, and that potential for that to happen just by virtue of this particular site concerns me. And I think it raises questions about when we consider it as an educational center, what does that mean in particular? And who do we intend to have access to that educational center? That is a major reason why I would personally prefer that it be much closer to the actual population centers of the county. I can certainly appreciate having this infrastructure and this opportunity right in front of us. But my personal gut feeling is that I am not enthused about a Tenino location. Or I wish I could go tomorrow. I don't have the time to go tomorrow, but I have a sense that I'm not sure it fits quite the educational vision that we have for the center, or that I'm assuming that we have. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. Betsy?
Well, it's not that far, really. Tenino's only about 20 minutes, I think, from Olympia, would be one argument I have. It's not very far from I-5 either. But I hear what you're saying about making it seem like we're just looking to support agriculture by locating there next to a farm and so forth. But there's a lot of exciting opportunities regarding including Fish and Wildlife. They have some interest in it. And still we're talking about landowners. We aren't talking about, we don't have as much to offer for small parcel people in Olympia. So I guess I don't share the concern that the landowners are in areas that are more open space, and this is where some of that open space is. It also gives an opportunity to see what an amazing place Colvin Ranch is. So it's right there. I mean, they're not just a great farm. They're doing, I'm sure you know what they're doing. Anyway, I don't know that we can ever afford any kind of land in Olympia.
David?
Yeah, I don't think the location is the optimal, but I don't think it's that bad at the same time. I do think this is an opportunity, and it's right here in front of us. I definitely think it's worth looking at, hearing and getting some of our questions answered. There are a lot of questions still, so this definitely wouldn't be a for sure thing, but it definitely, I don't think it hurts to listen, look into it more.
Sarah, I want you to clarify for me, is this property within the 1947 boundary of the district or not?
It is not. So it's over here next to the wastewater treatment facility. Okay. You'll see it's not Alpacas of America. That's up on this side of the freeway. And this is where the city of Tenino is. So the 47 district boundary is here in the middle, and this is out here in this space right here.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. So I have a couple of comments. That strikes me as a problem to put our headquarters on land that isn't even a part of our district. And I know we've talked about changing the boundaries of the district, but we haven't done that yet.
No,
So that
wait,
would
No,
be,
no, it's
it
not
is.
within
I
the
think
40
I think it's out in the
boundaries. It's
district.
within our.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said it wasn't.
I think phrasing that was inversely phrased. It is within our district. It's not
Okay,
within the. Yeah.
got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Um, so a couple of thoughts I have. I definitely think it's worth getting some more information and asking questions. So I have no problem with that. Um, however, I think that we don't have any basis for knowing if this is the right choice for us because we haven't done the financial feasibility analysis that we are planning to do. And so I'm not sure that putting our RFP process and that work on hold makes any sense. And in fact, I'd be very reluctant to jump into a proposal that hasn't had the benefit of rigorous outside financial assessment for us. Betsy may be right. It may be very hard to find a parcel in the urban area that fits our needs that we can afford, but we don't know because we haven't done that work yet. I share Helen's concern about access. If you're going to access this site, you're going to do it with a car. There is no public transit in a reliable way that's going to get you out to this site. And for a district that is trying really hard to think about climate change and our carbon footprint, I'm not sure that saying come to our education classes, but you got to drive out here to do it is necessarily the best approach. So I'd have that concern as well. And then the final thing that I would like to raise is I've seen a lot of projects that because they get some money from the legislature, they have to do things really fast and spend the money because they got it from the legislature. And a lot of half baked ideas move forward because you got money, you have to spend it or you lose it. And so I would not in any way want to be driven by some artificial timeline that the Economic Development Council has to spend their money that might have long-term economic and programmatic consequences for us that we haven't fully thought out. Um,
That
so
makes sense.
so yeah, let's go out there. Let's ask questions. Let's maybe invite them into a work session and tell us more about what this park is and what they're hoping to achieve. But I personally don't want to slow down our process of bringing somebody on board to help us get the kind of information that would help us make decisions about this or any other proposals that might fall into our lap in the future.
This is Doug. I haven't said anything yet. I like David's idea of getting more information and listening, and I think that makes sense. Basically, I concur with Helen. Most of our business is in the urban core, and I think that's where the future is too. I mean, we're trying to maintain farmland and forest land and other working lands, but the trend is not in a good direction. And I think about all the meetings staff goes to with partners. So that's a 20-minute drive of each way to go back to Olympia to the Department of Ecology or wherever it's going to be. So I think there's a whole lot of questions to be answered. I like the idea of kind of just, if we could get the airport buildings, that would be great. That's what I'd like to see. That's about the middle, I think. But more information.
So would the board like to put this as a discussion topic on our March work session agenda to hear back from the tour? And do we want to invite the EDC to give us a presentation or some information at that meeting?
Well, you've sobered me. I think you've made some really good points. I'm new at this. I don't know if we should invite them. Why don't we wait and maybe talk tomorrow and consider it after we see what we learn tomorrow? Would that
Folks
make
okay with
sense?
that? Okay, I see a few nods here. So we'll send our brave scouts out to South County tomorrow to look at this, and if it warrants, let's at least put it on for at the March work session. And if you all feel like it warrants discussion with the Economic Development Council folks, let us know that, and we'll keep that option open. Okay. Thanks for that update. Very interesting, late-breaking news here. So thank you. That takes us back to item 7D, which is the list of topics for our work session. We know we're going to be coming back to the Citizens Advisory Committee discussion. We're going to have an update on what we just talked about with the Conservation Education Center. We have, what else do we have? We have some minutes to look at and the meeting minutes format review. Legislative update, blah, blah, blah. Yep, it's all in front of us here. Is there anything else that is not here on the list now that someone wants to add to our draft topic list? Eric, can you scroll up a little bit? I didn't see the first two items on the page. Okay.
Were we going to do the, am I blind or I'm not seeing the CA, the Citizens Advisory Committee?
She just added it as number 6.
Number 6.
Okay. All right.
And it looks like staff presentation TBD. Okay.
Yeah, I think at this point, it is likely going to be our Frogs on the Farm program that we partner with the Partners for Fish and Wildlife program on. I'm just making sure that our staff will be prepared for that presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so
is that a reiteration of the thing Sadie did a number of years ago?
No, it's not. We have a second frog enthusiast at the district. This is a cost share implementation program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a draft topic list for our work session. So that moves us to item 8, Board of Supervisors reports. Are there any reports from board members this evening? No from Helen, no from David. Betsy?
No.
Doug?
Yeah, I got just a quick one on WACD stuff.
Okay.
At the annual meeting, there was a resolution that passed on diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and it passed barely. It was almost even. And the North Yakima CD has sent a letter to the WACD board basically saying, you guys are calling us stupid and racist. And it wasn't that at all in my estimation. It was, we need to do some stuff here. And their concern is that we just serve whoever comes through the door. So stay tuned on that one. It's some tempers are hot.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick announcement from me. The next meeting of the group working on the Olympia farmland mitigation issue is March 8th. So coming up here, and we should, well, I'll have more to report at our work session in March based on that meeting. Okay. Then the next item is Executive Director's Report. Sarah?
Great, thank you. I've got a couple of quick items as usual for you guys. One is our engineering position that's open has now closed. We received a couple of really qualified applicants, which is great. I feel very grateful to have received them, as I know that the market out there for engineers is really tight and they're very hard to find. So I'm very grateful that there's interest from such qualified individuals. We will be doing interviews next week for that position, and hopefully be able to narrow that down by the following week and make an offer. So we are getting close to the tail end of that hiring process, and our staff and our partners are ecstatic. So other news, the board meeting minutes that you receive in your packet that reflects the board meeting each month. A while ago, pre-pandemic, we also received a very concise, very succinct work session minutes along with our regular monthly meeting minutes that were approved in tandem, reviewed and approved in tandem, just as a legal certification that the board met and discussed district business. It's just a one-page document just to have an official record of the meeting of the board. So I've talked with TJ about this as well, but I'd like to bring those back for the month of February. So you'll see that after this meeting for the March work session is a set of work session minutes, which again is just a one page. These topics were discussed by this board on this date at this time, and then the regular month meeting minutes. The intent isn't to capture a lot of detailed notes or content. We still want work sessions to be discussion based and informal. There's no formal actions taken, and the minutes will reflect that. No formal actions were taken. But it just is an official record that this business occurred. So I just wanted to share that with the board. And if there's any concerns or questions about that, I'm happy to answer those. Hearing none on that, if you have any in follow-up, please feel free to reach out. The next piece of this is an interesting new proposed sort of both actual science-based and social marketing research opportunity that an outfit, a nonprofit out of Oregon has reached out to our district and our extension service here in Thurston County to do some electric tractor trials, some on-farm electric tractor trials, which is hard to say really quickly. So we are having some additional conversation as this group of NGOs and these local Thurston County-based folks, they're talking with some other districts and farms up north and on the east side as well. But we're looking at putting in a proposal to the TransAlta's Community Fund to help support some of this and getting one of these tractors up here and doing some of the research on this. One of the things I'm really interested in and excited about, other than the actual on-the-ground data that comes out of this, is a lot of the community and social data that comes out, a lot of the feedback and attitudes. And we're hoping that as we look at a proposed area, which is likely going to focus somewhere near and around the Independence Valley, it's sort of been proposed right now because there's a lot of farms in a really consolidated area and asking for volunteers there, but more to come on that. And getting a really wide representation and interest with. So anyway, that's an exciting piece around, again, climate change adaptation and mitigation and more to come. The last thing is next week is our plant sale pre-order pickup. So we have a variety of shifts of staff helping to support the plant sale packaging. The board was emailed a link if you'd like to volunteer for any particular shifts. Feel free to sign up. As you'll see, if you click on that link, the shifts are capped by attendees so that we can maintain COVID safe And all of the pickups are contactless pickups, and the process for that is part of the orientation each day for the volunteers that participate. Everything is going really smoothly, and we feel really good going into that week. We used a scheduling sort of software similar to if you were going to go do your grocery store pickup, for both scheduling our volunteer windows, but also scheduling windows of time for our community members to come within sort of these hour blocks on specific days so that we don't get either a bottleneck of traffic. And so again, we can just maintain really manageable numbers of humans in one space at one time. So community members won't leave their car. They'll just, drive up and we'll leave plants with them next to their trunk. So I guess they will get out and put them in their trunk, or we can put them in if they need support. So it'll be a really similar process. And we feel really good about that. We had about 300 pre-orders, and so a final report on the plant sale in terms of cost and expense and plant numbers and stuff will be prepared following the plant sale. But that's an exciting piece as well. We're actively in recruitment phase for our Veterans Conservation Corps crew. They went ahead and put the announcement and media information out there to give the longest possible time frame for folks to rent the equipment, or sorry, I just got a chat in the box, to participate in the program. And so far we're getting a lot of really great interest from folks that have a lot of qualifications in environmental sciences. So we're really excited to see what types of interns we get in that program and how we can connect them to conservation in our community. And that term starts April 1st. So that's an update there. That's the updates I have. If there are any questions.
Questions for Sarah? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I have one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Leah said something in the chat. She wanted to remind everyone if they're interested in renting the poultry equipment or even just doing a fake trial run on the reservation system that's on the website. She's looking for feedback. So like I am really going to reserve it. So I will do that and give her feedback. I don't know if you are, TJ.
I have already reserved it, and I'd be happy to do a little feedback on the online system too.
Right. Well, I have two, but she wants me to, do it there.
It was posted today.
Great. Thank you. All right. Was there anything else for adjourning? We need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Moved by Betsy. Second?
Second.
Seconded by David. Okay, roll call vote. Betsy.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Ellen.
Aye.
Doug.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay, thank you all. Good meeting. We ran a little long, but we also added a topic that was pretty substantive. So there we go. Stay well, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care, Doug.